2024 GAA. The Supreme Court also ruled that Special Provision 1D is void because it impliedly repeals Section 11 of the Universal Health Care Act, or UHCA, and the sin tax laws. Under Section 11 of the UHCA, Philhealth is required to maintain reserve funds up to a ceiling equivalent to 2 years of projected program expenses. Each year, Philhealth must set aside part of its net income as reserve funds, and any unused funds must be invested so that earnings are added back to these reserves. If the reserve funds exceeds the ceiling, the excess must be used to increase the benefits under the National Health Insurance Program and to reduce members' contributions. Section 11 also expressly provides that no portion of the reserve fund or its income may be transferred to the national government or any of its agencies. The Supreme Court ruled that reallocating Philhealth's supposed excess reserve funds through Special 1D and DOF Circular Number 003-2024 makes compliance with Section 11 impossible. These measures undermine the very nature of Philhealth funds as pooled resources for social health insurance, hinder the UHCA's goal of delivering comprehensive and universal health care, and ultimately violates the people's right to health and to an affordable, sustainable, and accessible public health insurance. The Supreme Court stressed that Congress cannot repeal Section 11 through the GAA, which may only provide appropriations consistent with existing laws. It cannot amend or overturn substantive policy. Any changes affecting the UHCA, particularly Philhealth's reserve funds, must be enacted through separate legislation. The Supreme Court further found that Special 1D contradicts the sin tax laws, which earmark specific percentages of excise taxes on sweetened beverages, alcohol, and tobacco products exclusively for the UHCA. The Bureau of Treasury must set aside these amounts for the UHCA's implementation, and Congress must fully allocate them to Philhealth through the GAA. Congress cannot reduce, suspend, or withhold these earmarked funds. The Supreme Court added that while the state may adopt measures to improve the economy, such measures must not contravene what the Constitution itself guarantees: affordable health care for all Filipinos, especially the underprivileged. The Supreme Court also ruled that the Finance Secretary cannot, in any capacity, augment any item in the GAA because this power belongs to the President. The Supreme Court also ruled that the President did not commit grave abuse of discretion when he certified as urgent House Bill number 8980, now the 2024 GAA, which dispensed with the requirement of reading on 3 separate days and the printing and distribution of copies in advance. Except in cases of grave abuse of discretion, the authority to decide whether a certification of urgency is valid rests solely with Congress. In this case, Congress approved the President's certification to expedite the passage of the bill. The Supreme Court also denied the petitioner's request to determine the liability of the DOF Secretary for technical malversation and/or plunder, ruling that such matters are improper for resolution in this case. The only issue properly before it is the validity of the issuances and whether they were issued with grave abuse of discretion, amounting to a lack or excess of jurisdiction. The Supreme Court ordered that the remitted funds amounting to 60 billion pesos be returned to Philhealth through the 2026 GAA. The full text of the decision and the separate opinions may be accessed on the Supreme Court website. Thank you. The voting. Okay, so the voting in this case, The Supreme Court was unanimous when they ordered the return of the 60 billion pesos funds of Philhealth transferred to the National Treasury, and they were also unanimous in permanently prohibiting the transfer of the remaining 29.9 billion pesos fund balance. But in declaring void Special Provision 1D and DOF Circular number 003-2024, the court voted by a majority.
There was a cross-border transfer of funds ba? Yun po ba yung ruling din ng court?
Oh, the court didn't say anything about the cross-transfer of funds. It just said that the transfer of the funds was made with grave abuse of discretion. Again, because Special Provision 1D and the DOF circular, they were violative of, they were declared void because they impliedly repealed certain laws, such as the syntax law and the Universal Healthcare Act, particularly Section 11.
Ma'am, Tagalog wants to know if the order is for the return of the money to Philhealth or to the National Treasury.
The order is for, because what happened here was Philhealth funds were transferred or remitted back to the National Treasury. So the Supreme Court is ordering the 60 billion peso funds that were transferred from Philhealth to the National Treasury to be returned to Philhealth. Yes.
Is it correct to say, ma'am, na absuelto si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos dito? Kasi some of the petitions were saying na even the president made the grave abuse of discretion nga because inalaw yung paggamit nga, yung paglipat ng pondo.
He was dropped as a respondent, if I'm not mistaken. But then the Supreme Court upheld his certification of urgency for the House bill. So they said that there was no grave abuse of discretion on his part.
People are expecting, sino yung mga tao na nag-allow na mangyari yun in the first place? So even if the money is returned, we want the public would want someone accountable. Would that be determined by the Supreme Court?
Well, the respondents here are the House of Representatives. Yes, and the DOF Secretary and even the Executive Secretary.
Ma'am, yun doon sa criminal liabilities nung iba sa mga respondents like DOF Secretary Recto, yung decision doesn't mean that they were cleared of possible criminal liabilities. It's just that hindi lang tinackle because hindi siya yung issue na raise sa petition, tama ba?
Okay, before I answer that question, I would like to clarify that the president was never a respondent in this case. That was a different case. So the respondents in this case was the House of Representatives, yes, and the Executive Secretary, yes. Yeah, if I'm not. Let's just make sure that we have everything in there. Senate President, yes, the Finance Secretary, Philhealth, yes, Speaker of the House. Yeah, so these were the respondents. Okay, now to answer your question about the criminal liability, yeah, so the Supreme Court said that this was not the proper proceeding to determine the criminal liability of the Secretary of Finance because this is a petition for review. This is a petition for certiorari under Rule 65, which deals with determining whether there is grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of jurisdiction. So wala pong criminal liability determination in this case.
Normally mo nasabihan na the court absolved them.
No.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
In terms of existing policies and guidelines, is there anything that needs to be changed to prevent this from happening again?
Oh, that's, I would be speculating. So I can't comment on that for now. Thank you. Yes.
Also set a deadline kung kailan siya mababalik yung pondo.
So this decision is immediately executory. And the Supreme Court said that the return of the funds to Philhealth will be through the 2026 GAA.
The President has already ordered the return of the 60 billion from the National Treasury back to the Philhealth.
Well, it's not considered moot because, again, the President ordered the return, but we're not sure as to the status of that. And also because there was a pronouncement by the court that Special Provision 1D and the DOF circular are void. Yes.
In the coming years? Is it possible that this will happen again with Philhealth in the coming years?
Again, that's subject of speculation, which I cannot answer because I'm not sure what Philhealth will do in the future. So this case just really determines that what happened, the provision in the GAA and the DOF circular, they were both void. Yes. Well, void for violating certain provisions of the Constitution. Well, that's just semantics. Yes.
Nag-require ba ang Supreme Court to report compliance kung na-transfer na siya?
Wala yun sa decision, but what was clear lang was return the Philhealth funds through the 2026 GAA.
Yung part po ng power ng Supreme Court to review yung budget arrangements, which is basically what this is, does it necessarily include imposing criminal liabilities on those who they are found to have exceeded their authority in how to spend in ruling how to spend money?
Well, again, this case is purely about whether there is grave abuse of discretion. Any other determination of criminal liability will need another case, specifically a criminal case.
In past cases about budget misuse, would there be a precedent where the court also endorsed a criminal proceeding?
Not to my mind. I'm not aware. We can get back to you on that if there's any. Thank you. Okay, I have to make a correction. What is this? It's a different case. This is a different case. This one. Oh, okay. Okay, correction. Tama pala yung first pronouncement ko. That the President was indeed dropped as a respondent, but only in 1 out of the 3 cases. That's because he's immune from suit while he's in office. So, you were okay? I hope this made everyone's Christmas. Or medyo mahaba-haba yung babasahin nyo. Kasi ang daming separate opinions eh. Kasi again, not all of them agreed that Special Provision 1D and the DOF circular should be invalidated in totality. Yeah. A majority have said yes, totally invalid sila.
Ma'am, was there also an explanation bakit yung order is through 2026 GAA ibabalik? Kasi syempre, yung expectation ng mga petitioners na nananawagan na mabalik is immediate na maramdaman agad yon sa health services. Was there an explanation bakit 2026 pa?
No, I did not see the explanation, but it's 136 pages, so not to my mind. It was just a pronouncement by the court that it should be done through the 2026 GAA.
Ina-absorb pa, ma'am.
Ina-absorb. Sige, go lang. Any other questions?
Ma'am, baka may update na rin ba dun sa supposedly scheduled oral arguments dun sa 2024 ba rin na budget? 2025. Was filed by Attorney Vic Rodriguez.
There's no updates yet on any oral arguments for that case. Yes, Gina.
Yung mga petitioner, sa aking pagkakatanda, panagutin yung mga respondent dun sa ginawa nilang pagta-transfer ng fund, pag-alis ng fund mula sa Philhealth. Di ba, dapat ba parang ang labo yata dun sa area na yon na mga justice? Parang, bakit hindi yun natakil? Bakit hindi yun diniseksyonan? What happened to the justices?
Again, ma'am, kasi we have to understand that yung petition that they filed in this case is a petition for certiorari. So limited lang po yun to determine kung meron po tayong grave abuse of discretion on the part of the government officials. Yun lang po. It does not determine criminal liability, nor does finding of grave abuse of discretion, it's not a basis for liability. Yes, there are many pronouncements here on that. You're welcome. Okay. Other remedies sought? Well, that's pretty broad and general. But again, the Supreme Court said this is just limited to grave abuse of discretion. You're welcome. So if there are no more